Hello, my friend. Today I want to share with you something that I believe you may have experienced more than once in your life, that painful feeling of being ignored. You send a message and there's no reply. You make a phone call, but they never pick up. You try to connect, but it feels as if you're standing in front of a cold, silent wall without a single response. And then the questions begin. Did I do something wrong? Am I not good enough? Should I try harder just to get their attention? Have you ever felt this way? I believe many of us, especially once we reach our 40s, 50s, or even 60s, have faced this silence at some point. Sometimes it's from a close friend, sometimes from a romantic relationship, and sadly, sometimes even from family. And what hurts most is how we often respond. We chase. We chase for an answer, for an explanation, or even just a tiny sign that we still matter. But let me tell you something I've learned from over 30 years of working with people. From the young and ambitious, to those who feel lost, from the highly successful, to those who are struggling. Every time you chase after someone who ignores you, you give away a piece of your own self-respect. I want you to imagine this. You're standing in a crowded room. In one corner, there's a small group laughing and talking together. You want to join them. You walk over, smile, but they don't notice. They keep laughing as if you're invisible. What would you do? Would you keep trying to squeeze yourself into the conversation, laugh along awkwardly, just hoping they'll acknowledge you? Or would you quietly walk away and find another group, one where your presence is welcomed? The answer seems obvious, doesn't it? So why in real life do we so often choose the first option, forcing ourselves into the lives of those who don't want us there? A friend of mine, he's about 55, once shared his story. After retiring, he was hit by a deep loneliness. He started reaching out, texting old colleagues, long-lost friends. At first, some replied, but soon, many of his messages went unanswered. He felt discouraged, so he sent more texts, longer messages, trying harder to start conversations. But the more he tried, the more silence he received. He told me, "I feel like I've become invisible. Maybe I lost my value when I no longer had a job or a title." And here's what I told him. Your value was never tied to whether someone replied to your text. Your value lies in who you are, in the wisdom, experience, and character you've built over decades of living. When someone chooses silence, treat it for what it is: a choice. Silence is rarely an accident. It's a decision. And when they choose not to respond, you must be strong enough to choose yourself. Do you remember this saying? Rejection is redirection. Being rejected doesn't always mean the end. Sometimes it's a message, a sign that says, this path isn't for you. Look elsewhere. Find the place where you truly belong. I know it's easier said than done, especially when the person ignoring you is someone you deeply care about. But self-respect is the foundation of everything. Without it, you lose not only your inner peace, but also your ability to love in a healthy way. Others won't value you if you don't value yourself first. Think back to the last time someone ignored you. How did you respond? Did you feel like you were standing at a closed door, knocking endlessly, waiting for someone to let you in? Now imagine this: instead of knocking, you turn around, walk away, and find another door. One filled with light, laughter, and people who welcome you wholeheartedly. That's the power of choosing yourself. And this is why in my work with people over 50, I always encourage them to reinvest in themselves, learn a new skill, join a club, take care of their health, or even start a small project. When you pour energy into yourself, you become a natural magnet. You don't have to chase attention. Your wisdom, maturity, and energy will naturally draw the right people toward you. Psychology research shows something fascinating. The more anxious we are about being accepted, the less authentic we become, and the less attractive we appear. On the other hand, when we remain calm and detached from outside approval, we actually become more appealing. People are drawn to those who are confident, independent, and not begging for validation. So let me ask you, what's holding you back from choosing yourself? Is it fear of loneliness? Is it the thought that if you let go of a certain relationship, you'll have no one left? But think about it. Isn't it worse to stay in a relationship where you always feel small, abandoned, and forgotten? Life at 40, 50, or 60 is not the end of the road. In fact, it may be the very moment when you see clearly who truly values you and deserves to stay. It's also when you finally understand that comparing yourself to others only steals away your joy. There's no need for comparison. Your journey is unique, and your story carries its own worth. One of my students, a 62-year-old widow, once felt left behind after her husband passed. Old friends reached out less, and she told me she felt abandoned. But instead of knocking on closed doors, she decided to take an art class. There she met new friends, shared laughter, and found joy again. She told me, "Now I don't need someone texting me every day just to prove that I matter. I know I matter, because I'm living a colorful life of my own." A small story, but with a big lesson. You don't need to beg for a seat at someone else's table. Build your own table, and invite those who truly appreciate you to sit with you. Life is a journey of constant change, and every change, every life transition, isn't always easy. But often those rejections, those silences, those moments of being forgotten are opportunities to reshape yourself, restart your path, and grow stronger. So next time you feel ignored, remember this silence is also an answer. And sometimes that answer is an invitation for you to return to yourself, where your true value has always been waiting. You know, there's a truth I've learned after many years of working with hundreds, even thousands of people in midlife and beyond. Most of the wounds we carry aren't caused by enemies. They come from the very people we once trusted, once loved, once placed our hopes in. And every time we're abandoned, ignored, or rejected, it feels like an invisible cut that keeps bleeding inside. I want you to imagine this. You send a message to someone you care about, but for days, even weeks, there's no reply. Slowly, you start asking yourself, did I do something wrong? Was I not good enough? Am I not worth their attention? Have you ever felt that way? I believe you have. I've been there too. But after years of working and researching, I discovered something profoundly important. Silence is also an answer. And that answer is very clear. They're not choosing you. They don't see your presence as a priority. And if they don't choose you, then you have the right to choose to let go. One of my friends, a woman now 62 years old, once told me her story. For more than 20 years, she tried desperately to maintain her place in a group of old friends. She was always the one reaching out, calling, texting, arranging get-togethers. But almost never did they initiate with her. One day, she sat down and said, "I realized I've been lying to myself for far too long. They don't see me as important anymore." When she finally let go, focusing instead on those who truly valued her, she told me she felt as if she had just dropped a backpack weighing dozens of pounds from her shoulders. I share this because I want to emphasize one thing. We are not responsible for chasing those who have already chosen to walk away. Instead, our responsibility is to turn inward and reinvest in ourselves. I want you to remember one principle. You are the prize. Years ago, I used to believe that I had to prove myself to earn a place in certain relationships. But now I understand a person with self-respect never begs for a seat. Instead of waiting to be invited to someone else's table, I built my own. And soon enough, the right people naturally found their way to sit with me. And you know what? This isn't just true for friendships or love. It's equally true in the workplace. Back when I worked as an advisor to companies, I often saw older employees working twice, even 3 times as hard as their younger colleagues just to prove they still had value. The irony was this: the harder they tried to prove themselves, the less respected they became. It was only when they stopped begging for recognition, focused on honing their skills, and built their own networks that respect came naturally. This is why I always say, self-respect is the foundation of everything. If you lose self-respect, you lose your balance in both career and personal life. Self-respect is like the spine, it holds everything upright. So ask yourself this: when was the last time you said no to something that wasn't worthy of you? Maybe it was a relationship that only brought you pain. Maybe it was a job that drained you without joy. If you can't say no to those things, then in truth, you're saying yes to hurting yourself. I know letting go is hard. As humans, we fear loss. But think of it this way: not every relationship is meant to last forever. Some people come into your life only for a chapter to teach you a lesson. And when they leave, it's not the end of your story. It's simply a reminder that you're ready for a new chapter. I'm reminded of a study in psychology that found this: people with strong emotional resilience don't cling to old stories for too long. They accept that failure or rejection is part of the journey, not part of their identity, and because of that, they move forward. Do you notice yourself holding on to an old story? Maybe it's a love that didn't last. Maybe it's a career opportunity that slipped away. Maybe it's a friend who no longer wants to walk with you. I want you to imagine this. If you could put that story down right now, how much lighter would you feel? After years of working with people over 50, I've seen something very clearly. The older we get, the more we treasure time. Time is a resource we can never buy back. So why waste it chasing people who don't care instead of spending it with those who truly do? I also want to remind you of this: mental health is just as important as physical health. We monitor our blood pressure, our heart, our weight. But we often ignore the invisible wounds in our minds. When you keep chasing after other people's acceptance, you're putting pressure on your soul. It's like drinking a slow-acting poison. It doesn't kill you right away, but it drains your vitality day by day. So start here. Ask yourself, who are the people that bring peace to my mind? And who are the people that only add heaviness? Then choose to invest in the first group. I once met a 70-year-old man at a life skills seminar. He stood up and said, "It took me nearly my whole life to realize this: when you focus on those who value you, life feels so much lighter. I wasted decades on toxic relationships. But once I learned to let go, I felt young again." The entire hall rose to their feet and applauded, not because his story was extraordinary, but because each of us saw a reflection of ourselves in it. And here's the message I want you to take with you. Every age has its own value. Many people worry that at 50 or 60, it's too late to change. But I see it differently. In fact, this is the stage where you carry the most wisdom, maturity, and clarity. You can change yourself, your life, even your worldview at any age. Never think you're too old to begin something new. A friend of mine started learning piano at 65. Today, at 72, he plays beautifully at family gatherings. A neighbor of mine began blogging about travel at 58, and now she has thousands of loyal readers. These examples prove one thing: transformation has no expiration date. And finally, let me leave you with something small but vital: stop comparing yourself to others. Comparison robs you of today's joy. Your journey is unique. Others may be richer, younger, healthier, but they are not you. And you, with your own experiences, your own pains and joys, are the most valuable story you'll ever have. So if today you feel abandoned, rejected, or overlooked, I want you to take a deep breath and remind yourself, none of that defines you. You don't need them to exist. You don't need their approval to know that you have value. Do you agree with me that the moment we stop chasing acceptance is the moment we finally become free? My dear friend, as we reach this final part, I want us to pause for a moment. Take a deep breath in and slowly exhale. Because sometimes a life change doesn't begin with loud dramatic actions. It begins with a quiet moment just like this. I often remember a small story. There was a man in his early 50s who once came to see me during a private consultation. He said, "All my life I kept chasing approval. I was afraid of rejection, afraid that people would think I wasn't good enough. But the more I ran, the more exhausted I became. And finally, I realized what I really needed was not compliments from others, but acceptance of myself." Have you ever found yourself in that situation? When you suddenly realized that everything you were looking for outside had been within you all along. That reminds me of a very important principle. Self-respect is the mirror that reflects your true worth. If you look into the mirror and see yourself as small, unworthy, the outside world will reflect that back to you. But when you hold your head high, believing that you deserve the right people will naturally be drawn to you. The problem is, many of us spend half a lifetime trying to prove our worth to people who never really cared in the first place. We beg for a seat at the table, a little recognition, a few words of praise, when instead we should have been investing in ourselves, in what makes us stronger and happier. Imagine this. You're walking through a vast forest. Some people walk with you for a short distance, then take another path. Others walk longer, then eventually stop. And then there are a rare few who will walk with you to the very end. If you keep clinging to those who chose another way, you'll miss the chance to walk lightly forward on your own journey. An old friend of mine once said, "Rejection is redirection." Rejection isn't the end, but a map pointing you to a better path. I've found this true in friendship, love, and career. The day I was rejected from a job I had desperately wanted, I thought my life was over. But years later, when another opportunity opened, one that allowed me to become a mentor and guide as I am today, I realized that the rejection back then was actually a turning point. Without it, I would never have walked into this life. You see, every loss carries a hidden message. It's time for you to move into the next chapter. The question is, are you willing to listen? Many psychological studies show this. People tend to overestimate the value of what they are about to lose, and underestimate their own ability to adapt after loss. Put simply, you may think that if you lose someone or lose a certain job, you won't survive. But in reality, you are far stronger than you think. And only through loss do you truly discover your resilience and your power to rebuild. So instead of tormenting yourself with the past, learn to focus on the present. The past is simply a chapter already written. You cannot rewrite it, but you can absolutely start writing the next chapter. Today, in this very moment, I want you to think, how would life change if you spent more time with people who truly value you? What would happen if you invested in your mental health instead of exhausting yourself, chasing after the approval of others? I have a friend named David. He divorced at 55. At first, he collapsed. He told me, "I feel like the whole world turned its back on me." But after a year, he began spending time with his grandchildren, learned to paint, practiced yoga, and kept a journal. When I met him again, he smiled and said, "I've never felt so free. I lost someone who no longer belonged in my life, but I found myself again." You see, a life change can even begin in pain, if you choose to see it differently. The more I work with older adults, the more I realize every stage of life has its own value. Never believe that 50 or 60 is too late. In fact, this is the stage where you have wisdom, patience, and perspective that youth never had. I've seen people over 60 start learning a new skill, write books, travel the world, even start businesses. And they succeeded not because they were young, but because they dared to live fully at their age. Perhaps one of the most important things I want to leave with you today is this: stop comparing yourself to others. Every journey is unique. Others may move faster, slower, richer, healthier, but they will never be you. And your uniqueness is your true worth. Let me end with an image. Imagine you're standing before a mirror. What do you see? Do you see wrinkles, traces of time, or do you see an entire journey? With pain, loss, but also lessons, love, and growth, that mirror doesn't just reflect your face, it reflects your story. And that story, only you can write the next page. So today, I want you to ask yourself, am I chasing acceptance from people who don't deserve me? Am I investing enough in myself, my health, my mind, my soul? And am I ready to let go of the past to step into a new chapter of my life? If your answer is yes, then I believe you are standing right at the doorway of a true life change. A change that doesn't need loud noise or spotlight, but simply the quiet courage to choose yourself, to choose self-respect, and to choose peace. You deserve it. You've always deserved it. Thank you for spending this time with me today. If something in this message resonated with you, I invite you to share your thoughts in the comments. I truly want to hear your story because every story matters. And if you found this video meaningful, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share so more people can receive this message. Remember, life always gives us the chance to become the strongest version of ourselves, a version we might even call a monster in the positive sense. Brave, powerful, fearless. And only you can decide that for yourself. I hope that when you leave this video, you will step out with a new mindset, not chasing, not begging, but ready to create your own path. And when you do, you will realize that freedom, peace, and happiness were never far away. They've always been here within your heart.